Welcome back. We're joined this morning by Representative Leslie Osborn from District 47. And we're excited to talk to you this morning, Representative Osborn, because you are a part of the Appropriations and Budget Committee. Obviously, we've talked about the state budget this year. I want to get into more of that detail. But you're also chairing a pretty important committee at the legislature. Tell us about your leadership role in the House.
It's one of the subcommittees of the Natural Resources Appropriation Committees. Now, that sounds like it might just be ag and wildlife and those kind of things, but it's actually 15 agencies out of our 78 appropriated agencies. So it's everything from agriculture and conservation to things like commerce and tourism. So basically what we're doing is going down a little more detail of the nitty-gritty, then we give our results back to the head A and B chair, which is Earl Sears this year.
So what does it mean? I think sometimes people don't realize how the legislative process works, right? What does it mean to be a committee chair? What does that allow you to do?
Well, you're a gatekeeper because you and I both know what sells papers, and what sells papers is some of these bills that have been filed that are never going to get a committee hearing. We hear about a lot of these, do we need to spend a lot of time on worrying if the watermelon should be the state vegetable or not? That's never going to make a committee hearing. Instead, you put good gatekeepers in as your committee chairs. All these bills are assigned to you, and you actually decide which ones merit moving on. If there's duplicative bills, we do that. We just take to what is the best, the one with the most leadership, the most membership in years, and move on with that. So it's basically being a gatekeeper and making sure only good legislation makes it through.
And so looking this year at that committee, what's on the horizon? What are the really important issues there for you?
Well, as far as like the subcommittee, there won't be near as many because we will have the majority of those things that would be anything from tax reductions to looks at the tax credit would actually be in the full A and B that I am a member of. And that's where we will look at things like, do we need a better matrix? Do we need to be doing a new way of judging how these credits work? To things like, do we need to make changes on some of them, like the wind industry this year, which has been very popular, but it's always that cautioning thing of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It is working. Do we need to rein it in a little bit about? Maybe, work with industry on that. But we'll see a lot of those kind of things. And in general, the entire budget bill will come through at the end of the session.
Yeah, this is where it seems the two biggest areas the legislature typically works on, taxing and spending. And so let's dive into those conversations, maybe talking first about the spending side, right? That's what leads us into the next year's appropriation process.
Right.
You've been a bit of a fiscal hawk, questioning some of the spending. So talk to us about your overview, your approach, and maybe tie into the conversation the governor had on last Monday.
Well, obviously we're looking at right now around a $287, I believe, $1 million hole. Now, that freaks people out. They see that, they think the sky is falling, the agency directors start coming in. Remember, it sounds daunting, and it could be, but this is about the same hole we had at this time last year. What we did was pull money from a lot of revolving funds, which are different saving funds that are set up at different agencies. We utilized those to fill in a lot of those holes and do things we needed to get done. Every year there's going to be some certain need that comes up. This year Healthcare Authority has some extra ones. There's always going to be things that change from year to year. Now, we have the funds, according to the governor, to do the same thing to fill those holes this year. I believe it's February 18th we'll get the numbers from the Equalization Board. Those will show the first time that we may see some reduction coming in from what's happened with the oil and gas prices. When that happens, we will adjust the budget as needed. But at this point, I want people to remember this does not mean the sky is falling. This is just a good time to be talking to all the agencies about find your efficiencies like we would at home or in our own businesses.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up that point because this is a lot of what we've been hearing in between this week, and I think there were a couple callers that came in on your show, Trent, that okay, if the gas prices are down and our jobs hit or our family budget's hit, I'm tightening my belt.
Right.
We're making some cutbacks at home. So then to hear the state say, oh, don't worry, we've got extra savings, we can take care of it. We don't have to tighten our belt. That's kind of an uncomfortable posture for some Oklahoma citizens. Does the legislature understand that, do you think?
Not all of us,
okay,
but I think a lot of us do. And it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier. Is it the governor's responsibility to do this? Is it the legislature's? And I think we work pretty well together.
Sure.
Are we always on exactly the same page? No, but we aren't always in our home budgets either. So where we may need to tighten, there may be some agreements, and let's be honest, that's why we wait to finish the completed budget the last week of session, which is always the last week of May. It's not that we wait until then. It's that these negotiations are ongoing, and we're getting new numbers all the time from the Tax Commission.
So that's on the spending side. Of course, what a lot of Oklahomans really feel is the tax side. And I know you have some ideas about where Oklahoma should be going when it comes to taxes, what are those? What's your vision, starting with the big picture, what's your vision for the future of Oklahoma?
I think what we have to look at is long term. We have to look at diversification. We are, first and foremost, thrilled to have the oil and gas industry in our state, the backbone of our state, agriculture right behind it. But that doesn't mean that for these kind of cycles that are always going to happen, that we don't need to do things proactively to be able to diversify the economy. How you do that, you lower the overall tax burden so that you keep encouraging businesses to move here. Texas has done a phenomenal job of that. We need to emulate that. Do we want to do everything Texas does? Of course we don't. But this is an area where they're shining, and they really are. Are their property taxes higher? Yeah. But still, when you look at overall tax burden, when you look at what a CEO of a company looks at when he's thinking about bringing manufacturing jobs to our state, they're looking at the income tax rate. Brownback in Kansas has been very proactive about starting them on a path. We don't want to be the one in the middle. We want this to be the economic corridor. So that's why we have to keep talking about continuing that journey, with the caveat of remembering that when you see those static numbers that come out from the liberal think tanks, just because we lower taxes doesn't mean less revenue will come in for core services. More will come in when people and businesses have more of their own money to spend.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue this conversation a little bit. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the other topics that you'll hear this session, but let us know what you're thinking. Go to facebook.com/MiddleGround TV and let us know what you think about this conversation we're having this morning, as well as what topics you think the legislature should cover. We'll tell you what else is on the docket coming up next. Stay tuned.